Hello and welcome to Hysteria. I'm Erin Ryan.
And I'm Alyssa Mastromonaco.
Alyssa, I learned this week that Fani Willis, the DA who is behind the charges that Trump faces in Georgia, wants to try all 19 defendants at the same time.
Delicious.
You know what I pictured when I heard that fact?
What?
Do you remember that viral TikTok of a cart full of rubber chickens and someone pushing down on all of them at the same time?
Can I get a...
And all of them.
Yes. Oh my God. We have to resurface that just for this episode.
I feel like that's the sound they would make while they were pleading not guilty. Yeah. I saw something really funny this week in the news. I mean, I know that everything's sort of been eclipsed by the giant indictment blocking the sun, but other things are indeed going on. Did you see that Ron Desantis has made some new public comments about the Disney lawsuit?
I have not.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
what did he have to say for himself?
He was like, you know what, guys? I've moved on. Maybe Disney should stop suing me.
Shut up.
He's like, I've moved on. But like, you don't get to decide that, sir. You don't.
No.
That's not up to
God,
you.
there is such a fundamental misunderstanding in the Republican Party about how lawsuits work.
I mean, here's the thing. I know Ron DeSantis is not stupid. You know? Like,
no.
He's not like a Kushner. You know, he's got
right.
He went to decent colleges, so at one point in his life he was intelligent, right? Compared to other people his age. I don't know, man. You know, he's only 44. People aren't talking about that enough.
We've talked about the fact that I'm older than Ron DeSantis, but let me just say, I look way younger.
I just think like evil ages your face.
Evil does age. I mean, I think that's very true. Look at Cruella de Vil.
Yeah, she's honestly an icon. Okay, so apparently we're going to get a mugshot of the former president, disgraced former president, current presidential frontrunner for the Republican nomination. Donald Trump and 18 others were criminally charged in connection with efforts to overturn Biden's 2020 win in the state of Georgia. The indictment is the fourth to implicate the president. It follows a 2.5-year investigation by Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis that also resulted in charges against Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani, former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and several of Trump's advisors, including Sidney Powell, which was like funny. I was listening to some MSNBC coverage of the indictment night, and you know, like most breaking news coverages listened to later, it was kind of useless because it didn't really give a lot of information because they didn't really have a lot of information.
Right.
But there was a part where Rachel Maddow got the indictment and was reading it, and she was reading all of the indicted people, and it was like first, middle, last name. And I realized if a newscaster is reading your middle name, you were in big trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're under arrest for being a serial killer. Or you have been indicted.
It's problematic.
You don't want Rachel Maddow reading your middle name unless she's literally marrying you.
It is the equivalent of your mother saying your middle name when you're like 6.
Yeah. The grand jury issued arrest warrants for the people that were charged, and they have until noon on August 25th to voluntarily surrender. Trump was charged with 13 counts, including violating the state's Racketeering Act, soliciting a public officer to violate their oath, conspiring to impersonate a public officer, conspiring to commit forgery in the first degree, and conspiring to file false documents. His associates were charged with related Georgia laws, Georgia's anti-racketeering law, which is apparently Fani Willis's signature law that she has used to prosecute.
Specialty. It's her. It's her triple Lutz.
Teachers. She used it to prosecute teachers who who conspired to cheat on tests. She knows her way around the RICO statutes, and they're in trouble. I feel like they're in trouble. But one thing I kind of wanted to talk about, I mean, Pod Save America has done some really good analysis of the actual indictment. we've got other pods that have gotten drilled down into like more specifics legally. I kind of wanted to just flag something for people. And that is that one of Donald Trump's favorite things in his bag of trick singular, is figuring out which person involved in anything inconveniencing him will most incite his followers. So he usually picks out somebody to pick on who will most enrage his followers. And usually that person is a black person or a woman or a black woman. If there is a black woman involved in something that it stands in the way of Donald Trump, even if she is not the only reason that Donald Trump is having a hard time, he will attack her and sick his followers on her. And this is not something that is new in any way, shape, or form. Fani Willis, he has attacked her, which she's a black woman. His attacks have been super personal. He has, I'm not even going to repeat these unsubstantiated claims and give them oxygen, but he has made wild accusations about her being wildly immoral in the course of her job, which are completely baseless. It's really, he keeps repeating it. He has called New York Manhattan prosecutor Alvin Bragg awful names. He has attacked Tish James. He has also attacked Tanya Chutkan, who is also a black woman. It's a pattern.
It's a pattern. It's an obvious pattern. He is not deft. He is not subtle. He is obvious like a heart attack.
Yeah, extremely obvious like a heart attack. And I saw an article yesterday about how Fani Willis said she has never been called the N-word so much since.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Horrible. These people are
But
horrible.
You know what he's just nervous about? You know why he's setting his supporters on her? Because since she became DA, the office has a 97% conviction rate. What?
Weird. It's weird. All of these like Trump supporters are people with those like bumper stickers of the American flag with the blue stripe on it. And they're like, back the blue, yay cops, we love the cops. But like, isn't she like the main cop if she's a prosecutor?
She's the main law enforcement official.
That's a pretty important law. I mean, do they like law enforcement or like are they ACAB now? Like what's going on with Donald Trump's followers?
Don't know. I feel like they're really blowing in the wind. Fair weather friends of the blue.
Yeah. I feel like they kind of like fascism more than they like actual law enforcement.
It feels that way, doesn't it?
Feels that way. Let's see. What else should we do? Oh, yeah. We've got some interesting and very discouraging, but also encouraging science news. Alyssa, you want to get into it?
Well, Erin, in Science Hates Women news, menstrual hygiene products like tampons and pads have now been compared by using blood testing for the first time. Erin, did it ever occur to you that when you were being sold maxi pads or super plus tampons for extra flow, that they were talking about fucking water and not blood? Wait, hold on, Erin. There's an actual saying, blood is thicker than water. Is it nobody? I can't believe all of the times. I feel like I have been so duped because all of those commercials, when they do the blue liquid, I always thought it was some sort of like viscous gel. You know what I mean? I didn't know it was just blue water.
Right.
Like, of course it's not the same. Well, Erin.
I mean, it's a product that was designed to work on something that the product is not used for. I'm not using tampons to soak up saline water.
Like, what? I can't. When we saw this article, I was like, first of all, I felt like some sort of like validation because I'm like, why don't tampons work quite right for me? I have thought this for my entire fucking adult life. We're going on 35 years. I have been like, why do the tampons not work right? Why? And I'm not going to go into detail because any person who uses tampons knows exactly what I'm talking about right now.
Yes.
They know. And so anyway, yes, Yes, a study published in the BMJ Sexual and Reproductive Health Journal that came out on August 7th was the first to compare the absorption of period products using human blood. And guess what it found out? Finding that diaphragm-shaped menstrual discs may be better than pads or tampons at absorbing menstrual flow. Obviously. But I create a crime scene when I have tried to use the diaphragm. So... the diaphragm-shaped menstrual discs.
Sure.
So I have always defaulted to pads and tampons, but now I understand that they were not using any solution whatsoever. That's great. And the problem with this is, Erin, is that when you try to explain to a doctor how your flow is, you tend to base it on the products you use. So if you're like, oh, I have a really heavy flow, well, like, I don't know, do you? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And talking about your flow is central to understanding. Are you anemic? Do you have any sort of disorders or underlying conditions? So anyway, not great. Not great. Anna. Not great, Erin.
What other product that is used by so many people every day, so many people are using these products. What product was tested on something that it isn't what the product, like, it would be like, okay, well, we developed these new airbags for the car. Oh, does it work in a crash? No, we used it for we used it
on a hot air balloon.
Yeah, we used we used it in a carnival game where people threw balls at it. Oh, okay, well, I need it in a car crash. So could you test it in a car crash? I mean, oh my God. Like,
wait, but that's not all the period news. That's not all the period news that we have this week.
Oh, good.
They're trying to bury it, Erin. Bury it in the summer where they think people aren't paying attention, but we're making sure that people pay attention. Well, there was new research that found that quote unquote forever chemicals, also known as PFAS, forever chemicals were found in the lining of period underwear, the wrappers of tampons, and in other menstruation products. Why does this matter? Because forever chemicals are man-made compounds that can potentially accumulate in the body over time and take years to break down in nature. They have been implicated in a number of serious health effects, including cancers. Erin, cancers. Has anyone not seen the crazy commercials on television for if you were using Johnson & Johnson's talcum powder that you can now sue? This is not that different from that. These PFAs cause cancer, high blood pressure, disruption of the endocrine system, and potential developmental problems in children. This is a really good reminder of the fact that, for most of the history of Western medicine, doctors were like, girls are too hard. We're just going to study men. And, didn't do anything. Didn't do anything to study what the female body actually needs and what works for the female body. There have been, what happens to the female body during all the different hormonal changes and how the chemicals that we use in manufacturing impact specifically the female body. Right. And I have to be honest, I thought a lot of this stuff was sort of handled when we found out years ago that they found bleach in tampons and everyone's like, that's terrible. Well, apparently they didn't get rid of everything that was going to make our lady parts very, very unhappy.
We need to just have some sort of a period protest where we just free bleed until they figure out how to solve this shit.
Yes. Because be uncomfortable with the red spot in the seat of my pants. We're going to
paint the streets red with our blood and what is it? What the endometrial tissue until someone figures this shit out. Actually, I just wanted to flag something. Why am I talking like a corporate email? I don't know. But the study of the PFAS, I know I'm never going to be corporate again. I will become a forager. But the study came from the University of Notre Dame, which also brought went? Yes, but also brought us Erin Ryan and Amy Coney Barrett. Feel like Notre Dame's got a lot
range. Notre Dame has range.
They've got a lot more work to do if they want to make up for Amy Coney Barrett. But this is a good start, guys. Good work.
It's a good start. And I'm sure listeners are curious about what products they should be worrying about. No products were named in the study. So unfortunately, We don't know. We don't know what is what's out there.
That's why free bleeding until they fucking figure out what's going on. I'm tired of this.
Yeah. Give us the list. Give us the list of products.
Show up to like the main building steps and be like, I'm bleeding until you fix it. Notre Dame. And then I will be going to jail in South Bend. We have another story. Alyssa, I wanted you to give us an update on this. This is super sad, but really important for our listeners to pay attention to.
Yes. And last week, Erin, as we were recording, this was just breaking news, but the Lahaina fire is now the deadliest fire in over 100 years, according to the U.S. Fire Administration. As of our recording today, only about a third of the Maui wildfire burn area has been searched. The death toll of what's already the deadliest wildfire is sure to increase. As of today, the death toll is 106 from the wildfires. The Hawaii governor, Josh Green, told CNN more than 2,200 structures have been destroyed or damaged by fires, about 86% of them residential. The fires wiped out both power and communication for thousands. Hawaiian Electric announced it had restored power to about 80% of its customers on Maui. However, Hawaii Electric is also facing a lawsuit claiming power lines blown over by high winds helped to cause the destructive fire. Though an official cause has not yet been determined. What we have heard in certain news reports was that when wind gets high and fires break out, the protocol is to turn power off. And it appears that did not happen. Hawaii's Attorney General is going to review the fire response, also addressing why fire hydrants ran dry and 400 disaster alarms failed to activate as the fire spread. The fires in Kula are still burning as we record. So, Erin, we have been watching this on television. What is happening there is so horrible. President Biden just announced today that he and the First Lady will be visiting Maui on Monday. A lot of folks have been critical, saying that he should have been there sooner. I am the first one. This was my job for many years when I worked in the White House. On an island like Maui, it is good that he has not gone yet. The resources should be nothing but devoted to the people who need them. I think so much of what we have learned on TikTok and Instagram is so important for us that, I think that so many people, myself included, have vacationed in Hawaii on Maui. And, I have learned now that local residents during droughts and shortages were always told to use less water so that hotels and vacation spots where tourists would be staying could use things, with free reign. I think that, one of the stories that is inspiring, and I think a lot of people on Maui are hoping for, there's a historic banyan tree in the middle of Lahaina. It is used as a gathering spot. It is near one of the most historic parts of Lahaina, which also contains, this area of Maui contains some of the most sacred and historically rich cultural properties and highest ranking sacred remains of Hawaiian ancestors. So the local arborist who has inspected the banyan says that it is burned, but they're holding out hope because there is a live tree. There is life underneath the burn. There's live tissue, and that he is considering the tree currently in a coma. So I think that if they can keep the banyan tree alive, it would mean so much to the people of Lahaina. But we all want to help. We want to help as much as we can. Anything counts. I have learned for years in situations like this, in severe disaster, the one thing communities need is money. That is the most important thing that you can give to them right now. So any dollar counts. We love to recommend the Maui Food Bank and the Hawaii Community Foundation, the Maui Strong Fund. We will link to several charities in our show notes this week for ways that you can help. And also to help keep Maui in the news. It is going to take years and years to rebuild. And Erin, one of the sickest things I saw was one of the local news reporters on TikTok, saying that realtors, Erin, had been trying to cross into the fire-ravaged areas to figure out who owns what properties so they can try and buy the property from these folks, this community. And the thing that's so important also about why we should, if we can, give money to this, because federal money will take a minute to get there. And that is what the realtors are banking on, that people don't know what kind of support they're going to get. They don't know what kind of insurance money they're going to be eligible for. And so the realtors are trying to give a quick hit of money to try to get this. It's so sick. It's so sick and so depressing.
Oh my God. What? Yes. So we have a bunch of charities in our show notes, some a mutual aid fund, food banks, Humane Society, all kinds of places. And if you can give, please give and help. All right. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got an interview with the Black Forager. And welcome back. You're listening to Hysteria, the podcast equivalent of the Avengers. But instead of superheroes, we assemble interesting and cool women. We're more fun at parties than the Incredible Hulk anyway, right?
Without question.
Without question. Okay, so our guest today is, I'm not exaggerating, she has been on our top 10 most wanted guest list for so long. She is an environmental science enthusiast and social media star who teaches her followers how to forage food wherever they may be. She also spreads pure joy in the process. You may know her as the Black Forager. We're so excited to welcome Alexis Nikole. Hello, Alexis.
Hello. Oh my gosh, Erin, can I just have you walk around with me and introduce me in all situations?
Woman. I'll be your hype woman for sure. Here she comes. And then you don't need to make fake phone calls to be like, hey, I'm in danger. Come
exactly. You have a built-in buddy. I can only pay you in acorns, so I hope that's cool.
That's fine. I trust you to find edible food more than I trust myself, honestly. Alexis, when and how did your foraging practice really start? When was the first time you stopped and you were like, I'm going to put something wild and potentially deadly in my mouth right now? And how does the act of foraging make you feel?
Oh my gosh. Well, and the funny thing is, she now hates that I tell this story because it makes people ask her too many questions, but I blame my mom, as many of us do for lots of our wonderful quirks and aspects of our personality. When I was really little, she used to decompress from her days kicking butt in the boardrooms at Procter & Gamble by gardening. And so when I would go out and try to garden with her as a 5-year-old, I'm sure both of you are aware of this. 5-year-olds, what with their lack of motor skills and general lack of understanding of how the world works, generally not the best gardening assistants. And so she would always give me another little task. And one day that task was going and gathering all of the onion grass out of our lawn. And I had never noticed that there were different kinds of grass. Once again, 5. I was barely recognizing my sense of self at that point in time. And she pointed it out to me and she's like, well, this grass, it's thinner than the other grass and it's slightly darker green and it grows taller. And it was like a switch was flipped in my head. And then suddenly I saw it everywhere. And I went and I gathered it and she's like, and if you break it, it smells really tasty. And I broke it and it smelled like garlic, like the best pasta nights. And so I became obsessed and I chose to white knuckle that hyperfixation for my entire life.
What do you love the most about foraging?
Oh man, honestly, I love the connection that it fosters with the spaces around you. I love how much more tuned in you are to the little micro seasons and tiny machinations of even just the plants in your neighborhood. It's really exciting to kind of be instead of oh, it's the 1st of August, to be oh my gosh, it's the first day of bur oak season. Oh my gosh, it's the first day of pawpaw harvest. And also, just from an environmental science and a climate justice standpoint, being able to track whether those things are happening earlier in the year, later in the year, looking at what the harvests look like, comparing and contrasting season over season. I just really think it's an excellent way to have a finger on the pulse of all of the green spaces around you. And you can do it anywhere. Like, you don't have to be out in the middle of the woods. People are always surprised that I'm like, no, I live in downtown Columbus. Like, I can see the skyline from my front yard. I am not a mythical fairy living in an unreachable space in Appalachia. I'm out here just like everyone else.
Alexis, I think mythical fairy status could be debated. I think Erin and I do think you're a mythical fairy.
Yeah.
Has your foraging practice changed over the years, whether through climate change or just because you're not 5 anymore?
It has certainly changed. It's a little less onion grass heavy than it was when I was 5, which honestly, onion grass is great. And the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, wow, I need to really harvest some more of that this winter and spring. After graduating from college and going through like the quintessential super broke period that I feel like especially all millennials and Gen Z folks are going through because the world's kind of on fire, both financially and physically, I was turning to foraging because I realized I could not feed my body off of 59-cent packs of ramen and frozen, undressed veggie burgers every day for the rest of my life. But also, I wasn't out here about to pay for like bunches of kale. So I started going and foraging around my old neighborhood for me and the like 5 other people I was living with because, once again, fresh out of college. It really like it would liven up dishes and we all would feel better afterwards. And that is kind of what made me take it from just a weird hobby that I would only do during the summers to a huge part of my life.
So the world, as you mentioned, falling apart, things, as you mentioned,
Truly.
on fire, climate change getting worse. How do these sad facts impact your foraging practice? But do any of your practices at the same time give you hope?
Oh, man. I definitely see the effects in my foraging practice because things are getting progressively earlier year over year, which is sometimes terrifying to think about. When I was younger, and even when I was in college, there's a fruit here. It's our like state native fruit in Ohio called the pawpaw. And I remember harvest for that starting in early September. But now I reliably can start finding fruit the second week of August. I'm actually going to go check out one of my spots right after we're done chatting. And that just lays bare how much warmer it is earlier, how much warmer it stays into the late summer, the fall. I was admittedly just listening to you guys' podcast yesterday. Ooh. And you were talking about how like usually at the end of summer, you know, you have the cool evenings, you're going to the county fair, you're wearing your fly new like cold weather outfits. And that is not happening right now. So I definitely am constantly faced with being like, oh, according to my notebook, 2 years ago, I was harvesting this 3 weeks later than I currently am now. We're just going to note it and we're just going to keep track of it because what else can we do? But if there is something that gives me hope, it's seeing so many people get invigorated about wild foods, about foods that are simply just grown closer to where they call home. And I think this kind of return to some semblance of community-based agriculture is going to really help us in the long run. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying New Yorkers need to give up their avocados, you know. I'm not saying people in Texas need to give up maple syrup. But I'm seeing a lot more folks taking the opportunity to like go to farmers markets or go out foraging with their friends and kind of making a day of it. And all of those little choices add up over time in making a food climate that is much more environmentally friendly and much more environmentally sound. And also, the more people care about these green spaces around them and the more inherent value they see, they're like, oh, frick, it's for more than just like those birds I can't name. Well, now I want to protect them too. And so maybe that'll inspire some folks. Maybe an oil baron or 5 or 10 to
Listen up,
care
oil
a
barons.
little bit more. Those gosh darn oil barons with their monocles and their bags of money.
Their top hats laying in piles in the corner. You only need one top hat. You don't need that many top hats.
You don't need that many top hats. Who's even making them for you anymore?
You know what? Flip your top hat upside down, fill it with some compost, and plant a little top hat garden.
Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly. Wildflower seed top hat. I don't know. What am I inventing? Alexis, how do you stay safe in the outdoors? Like around other people, I mean, not necessarily like plants. And what lessons have you learned from foraging about the way that people are?
I have learned, and this is a sad learning, that as a like 6 foot tall Black woman, I typically feel safer and people treat me better when they come across me in the wilds of Ohio if I am dressed in a really friendly or whimsical or approachable way. There is a discernible difference in the way that people talk to me when I'm just like, you know, schlubbing around in sweatpants and a t-shirt or a hoodie versus when I'm in like a ball gown climbing a tree for berries, which, you know, is like, it's fun to laugh at, and I have to laugh at it so I don't cry about it. My partner is white, and him, just the differences he notices in how people treat me when I have a full face of makeup versus when I don't. When people know that we are outside together versus when maybe he's a few paces ahead of me or I'm a few paces ahead of him and they don't think we're together. So I typically do dress up for going out foraging. I always tell myself, you know, I'm dressing up for nature. I'm dressing up for Mama Nature. Not for these rude people who may have otherwise not been so keen on my foraging. And I do, especially when I'm going to new places, take a buddy. For folks out there who are wondering how you can be a better ally to the outdoorsy woman or person of color in your life, go with them. Go with them. That's my pro tip for white men of the day. If you're listening, go hiking with your friends so they feel safe and they don't die.
Love that song. So catchy.
Yeah, that's advice to live by. Okay, Alexis, as you said, we're in August now. Which of nature's gifts are you looking most forward to foraging right now? And do you have any special or favorite recipes you like to make this time of year?
Oh my gosh, I am so glad that you asked. Right now, the two biggies that I have been focused on, you know what? We're going to make it 3 biggies because I'm always working on too many different things. Cornelian cherries are in season right now. They're non-native, but people love planting them as ornamentals in most American cities. They're not even real cherries. They're a dogwood with tasty fruits. And they are ripe right now. They're delicious. I may or may not have girl bossed a little too close to the sun this weekend and harvested like 10 pounds of them.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And so now there's an entire shelf of our fridge that's just Cornelian cherry jelly. If you're in the greater Columbus area and you are hankering for some jelly, let a girl know. I can hook you up.
Oh my God. Jam is close to my heart, as Erin knows. Jam's close to my heart.
It should be close to everyone.
It should be close to everyone. So here in upstate New York, where I am, we We do some foraging only with very special people. My friend Mona, who's a chef, has taken me out to forage for fiddleheads and nettles and ramps at our friend Polly's house. But here's the thing. I learned from her, because she's a sustainable forager, that when it comes to ramps, for example, you leave the bulb. You don't take the bulb. So Alexis, can you talk about some starter steps for folks who want to be foraging sustainably?
Ooh, absolutely. These are my favorite. There is this excellent book that by now I feel like a lot of people have read called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And it talks a lot about the honorable harvest. And those are a lot of the rules that I kind of play by. You know, never take the first thing you see because it might be the last. You know, you get so excited and you're like, oh my God, a beautiful, perfectly ripe pawpaw. I'm just going to go ahead and yoink, take that. But you don't know if that's going to be the last one that you see. So that's always a big one. I'm very big on telling people, like, if the plant says no, leave it alone. And then folks are like, plants have never spoken. I don't know what you mean. And I'm like, if it's out of your reach, I would consider that the plant saying, nah, this is for someone other than you. If you yank on it and it doesn't give, that I feel like is a plant being like, this thing is not ready yet. So maybe leave it alone until it is. If it's surrounded by poison ivy, I'm like, poison ivy is the bouncer of the woods. And that is her being like, nah, fam, this isn't for you. I'm so sorry. You will have to continue your search elsewhere. And I am like, yeah, I don't want to mess with that. So I absolutely will continue my search elsewhere. Thank you so much. And I always want to think about how that particular organism reproduces and whether or not I am leaving it enough to be able to do that job. So when you're gathering fruits per se, you don't want to take every single one of those because what that fruit was banking on was a bird eating it, pooping it, and then putting its babies elsewhere so they can continue on and not be like competing with it for resources. You got to make sure those things can happen. With mushrooms, it's a little bit different because the mushrooms are just like the fruiting bodies. They don't necessarily affect the mycelium going on underneath the ground or within the rotting wood. But you also still want to leave some of them to make new spores, make new mycelium. So I'm always just like, if I harvest all of this, would this plant be like, my progeny? And if the answer is yes, I don't do it.
That brought to mind a very clear memory of my dad discovering fly agaric mushrooms growing in our yard and thinking, if I just pick all these mushrooms, they won't come back. They keep coming. He threw them away.
Sad.
He threw them away. I know.
There are some reindeer who love tripping, who would have loved the donation of those fly agaric mushrooms.
Oh my God. Reindeer who love tripping. Now that is going to be what I meditate on from now until the holiday season of 2023. Well, Alexis Nikole, thank you so much for joining us. This was pure delight. And please come back again another time. We love chatting with you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for the amazing work that you guys do. You know, long time listener, first time chatter. So that makes me so happy.
Oh, we love that. Oh, I am blushing too. Okay. Thank you so much.